Good morning. I'm Rev Therese Lee, and we welcome you today to this service of gratitude. I serve Unity Spiritual Center, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and I am grateful to be with you today. So I'm wondering, before your feet hit the floor, and you got out of bed this morning, were the first words out of your mouth, "Good morning, God," or was it, "Good God, it's morning"? What we know is that life makes manifest out pictures as our attitude. And so we're going to be talking today about an attitude of gratitude. I always ask this question, or I always say this. Attitudes are contagious. The question is yours worth catching? It's okay to laugh in church. You know that, right? You get to answer that question. I hope it is. Our affirmation for today is, I am alive, awake, alert, joyous, and enthusiastic about my life. So say that with me, please. I'll say it a little bit slower. I am alive, awake, alert, joyous, and enthusiastic about my life. Take a moment, breathe it in, let it settle. And then later on, as we go through today's service and even afterwards, take it home with you. Figure out, is this where you're living from each and every day? I hope so. Probably nothing works more quickly, Charles Filmer, our co-founder of Unity, says, to make the mind receptive and responsive to God ideas than gratitude. Thanksgiving. For these attitudes of mind fill us, Fillmore says, with expectancy, and fulfills the scripture that says, seek ye first the kingdom, and all these things shall be added unto you. We're already magnificent beings, and what Fillmore is talking about, do you have this great expectancy, living from gratitude, and then watching it out picture in your life? I hope so. I'm going to invite you to breathe a lot with me today, because I'm just a sassy minister who's going to invite you to be a little bit uncomfortable as you get into this attitude of gratitude. In Unity, what I love about us is that we have Jesus as our way shower. He's the great example, not the great exception. I believe probably on a lot of other churches today, they're talking about him as the great exception. And we see him as the great example. And what I know and what I teach and what I learned in Unity as a young adult, I wasn't a kid, was that he did not come into the world to save us. Rather, through his life and the way he lived his life, to direct our attention back to the reality of who we are as divine expressions of God. So say it with me. Maybe put your hand on your heart. I am a divine expression of God. Remember, in Unity, everything, and really no matter what, Unity or not, everything that follows the words I am states the truth of who you are. The subconscious says, all right, I am that. So let's say it again. I am a divine expression of God. So as true students, I'm in my 35th year. I know, I look like I'm a child, but I'm really not. Or I might have started as a child, right? Wouldn't it be different if I did learn all of these principles as a kid? It would have been fabulous. I was actually about 30 years old, so I'm going into my 35th year. So we follow how Jesus lived his life, because we know that the circle of life, there's birth, and at the end there will be a physical death. However, so we celebrate that at Easter, but mainly what we want to talk about always is, how did he live, and how is it that his life continues to be a roadmap for us today? Now remember, you've heard this from me before, or maybe not. This is a takeaway. If you write notes down, Christ was not Jesus's last name. Everybody breathe. Christ is Jesus's job description. It's our job description. Are you breathing? So you're thinking, well, wait a minute, what does that mean, Therese? What does that mean? Well, blessing hasn't lost its power since the 2,000 years when Jesus walked this earth, as we're told by the stories. The same multiplication that he practiced is here with us today. And in unity, the statement we often use is, what God can do for me, God must do through me, as me, and is me. Why? Because God and I are one. Not like this, because that indicates a separation. God and I are one. God and you are one. It's not a new thought. Even though unity in the genre of world religions is considered new thought, I think what it is taking what Jesus said and then applying it to life today, all these years later. So applicable. And yet they have to be applied in a way that you are living your best life. So think for a minute. The activity of God, Fillmore says, is expressed by providing us with unlimited good. Our action, however, individually and collectively, is the process that completes the manifestation of God's good. You don't have to take a class. You don't have to go to a specific center. You have to remember God in, through, and as you. And therein lies the blessing. So we're talking about the attitude of gratitude. Nurturing gratitude is one of my personal core values. The other one is loving out loud. So in my loving out loud, as I practice my nurturing of gratitude, it might mean that I share my dark chocolate. Or maybe even more importantly, I might share my beach heart rocks that I find as I'm out being with nature. And most of the time, it means I'm nurturing the gratitude of my life blessings by giving back. So being a sacred servant, whether it's serving Unity World Headquarters as the coordinator of Nehemiah, or walking in the Christmas parade. That'll happen next month on Hilton Head. Figure it out. What works for you to be a sacred servant? What works for you to understand how you're nurturing your gratitude? Because remember, in Unity, we don't tell you what to think. We ask you to think and then question what it is you're thinking and then think about it again, right? Because oftentimes we get full of the shoulds, right? Or our belief systems, which I call BS, and get back to, when we let those go, we get back to the truth of who we are. Charles Fillmore, our Unity co-founder, says this: be thankful for every blessing that you gain. This will keep your heart fresh. For true thanksgiving may be likened to the rain falling upon ready soil, refreshing it and increasing its productivity. Even if you only have a small supply, Fillmore says, give thanks for the littleness of whatever it is you have. This increases the little into such an abundance, because we start thinking about how grateful we are, that multiplies. And then what happens? Just like with the stories of Jesus' miracles, many are blessed and much is left over. You know this, don't you? When you're around someone whose light is so bright, you just want to get a little closer. Well, know that about yourself as well. Your light attracts us to you. So I'm wondering, how might you be living from the state of gratitude, from your fullness and giving thanks? I think you'll agree, every day there's so much to be grateful for. So much to get centered back into your heart space and realize is a blessing. Your presence here today blesses us. Your consciousness means that you're going to go out with whatever you take away from this message today, spread it out into the world purely by being you. And therefore, what happens is the blessings continue. Everyone is blessed by you and your presence. Breathe with me again. Each time we breathe, we move from our head to our heart space, and it allows us then to settle into the truth of who we are. So say to yourself, I am blessed and I am a blessing. I'll say it again with you. I am blessed and I am a blessing. Let it settle. Affirm it each day. Put it on Post-it notes all over your house, on your refrigerator, on your dashboard. And then take time each day to remember this truth and to know it is the truth of you. Your very presence blesses us this day. A good feeling, isn't it? Wow, I'm important. I matter. Yes, you do. We are because you exist. God is, you are, I am. What a great Trinity, right? So I'm wondering, are you grateful for this season of harvest? The trees are the perfect example of how beautiful letting go is, right? And then, of course, we know, because it's this time of the year, that the harvests are happening and the abundance of crops, as well as the abundance of gratefulness. And how are you harvesting your own blessings? It might be that you make a phone call you haven't made in a while. You're sending a note out. Maybe you make a contribution somewhere and practice your generosity. You'll know what works for you. Take time to go within, move from the head to the heart space, and then take an action, because that's our fifth unity principle, putting feet on your faith, demonstrating. So go out and practice your gratitude. I think every day gives us an opportunity to realize that we make a difference. You know this. You go into the grocery store, you smile at somebody, they smile back. Might have been the first time they've smiled in a day or a week. You hold open the door and someone says thank you, or they don't. It doesn't matter. You are doing something that blesses another. Each time with intention, right? Expecting nothing back, and it is a blessing to that person as well as yourself. The poet Mary Oliver wrote this on gratitude. Take a listen. My work is loving the world. Here are the sunflowers, there the hummingbirds, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening of yeast, there the blue plums. Here the deep digging of a clam on the speckled sand. Are my boots old, she asks? Is my coat torn? Am I no longer young and still not half perfect? Let me keep in mind, Mary Oliver shares with us, let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still, learning to be astonished. When was the last time you were astonished? Maybe you want to do that for yourself this season. The sheep in the pasture and the pasture itself, which is mostly rejoicing since all ingredients are here, the basis of which is gratitude, she says, to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy to the moth and the wren, to the sleepy, dug-up clam, telling them all over and over how it is that we will live forever. I believe what Mary Oliver is trying to say to us is that we get to come to know that gratitude as our attitude unlocks the fullness of life. Where a rainy day might have bugged us last week or 2 years ago, today it rains because we know a rainbow's going to come, or the potentiality of a rainbow. That's what I do. I'm a rainbow chaser now. It's raining. Let me go out and see what will happen afterwards, besides the dew on the trees, right? So it turns gratitude, turns what we have into enough and more, doesn't it? So I look around at the seashells that I collect when I get done with my walk on the beach, and I am just so excited about myself. So not only do I have a physicality of something like a seashell in my hand, I have the joy that the ocean blessed me by finding it. Because you know how wide the beaches are. People say, how do you find them? I say, let's be real, they find me, right? They bless me. So I look and there it is, wow. So wow yourself, figure out what activity you want to do that brings on a wow. And your heart will open and surge in ways filled with gratitude that maybe you haven't experienced in a while. Are you willing to know that gratitude turns denial into acceptance, chaos into order, and confusion to clarity? I've learned for myself that with practicing the attitude of gratitude, it turns a meal into a feast. My favorite one these days, bagged broccoli with warmed up turkey bacon. And I love it. And I'm by myself and I put out my little placemat and get my cute little china out, and it's big. Now, would I share it with you when you come? No, I probably would make something different. How do you make everything a joyous occasion? You know this and I do too, that a house becomes a home with gratitude, that a stranger becomes a friend. I have experienced gratitude, and when it turns the problem or a challenge into a gift, yes, and you don't know how it's ever going to get there, and then it all of a sudden is the gift, failures into successes, yes, and then that unexpected perfect timing that makes a mistake into an important event. Eyes wide open, and we see this, and then we're able to feel them. Are you still breathing with me? I can awaken to the realization each time I get back to the center of gratitude and turn my life from just existing in any moment to a life of wonder, a life of gratitude, and then become connected to situations that maybe even just yesterday I might have been disconnected with. And then what happens is they become lessons, because there's something beneficial in the lesson. So my favorite new word now is blessings, blessons, lessons. It makes everything for you. Isn't that a great way of looking at life? Gratitude allows for you and me to make sense of our past. It can bring peace to this day as you allow it, and it creates an intention for tomorrow. When you come from that place of giving thanks, the gratitude comes out. Heart math tells us that. It is scientifically impossible for us to be grateful and unhappy. Choose the gratitude. Choose the gratitude. Let your heart be happy. I also believe, and I've learned through my many Unity teachers, the attitude of gratitude affirms the realization that we are now in heaven, right here on earth. We get to notice life's blessings instead of focusing on the little annoyances. Anybody else ever get irritated? You're in that 10 or less checkout line and there's someone who can't quite count, right? Or someone cuts you off on the expressway, you give them that international peace sign, and you breathe into the gratitude of grateful they're in front of me, right? And then get back to your current moment. It's about being conscious and aware that today is the gift, and that's why it's called the present. So join me as we take a pause just for this moment together to celebrate this day that each of us knows that we can do what we've come here to do. We can be who we've come here to be. Whether it's sharing a smile, offering someone a ride, volunteering in your community, you will know how to express your gratitude. Most importantly, together, with our attitudes of gratitude, our hands and our hearts in action, we get to create a world that works for all. Thanks for being with me today. Many blessings, many grateful memories I'm sharing with you in this moment. I'm Rev Therese. Thank you.